we started the Black Women's Health Initiative from being part of Amos project, which I'm the faith organizer with Amos. And we started the Black Women's Health Initiative because we've been talking about our health and how the disparities of Black women we go through. I think I have a doctor in the house too. Are you Dr. Karen? Yes. So she can attest to as well that there's so much going on with our health. Just recently, I had a health scare with a blood clot that almost went undetected. And the young lady that was actually that did the ultrasound did like a 2 or 3 minute ultrasound, and I knew it should have been longer than that. And she said, "Well, you're okay. You don't." I'm like, "No, something's wrong," because my leg had swelled up almost twice the size of the other one. So I called my doctor, and he said, "No, I need you to go to another place." So he sent me to another place to go get it. And that lady that did that ultrasound, the technician, took about almost 20 minutes. I'm like, the other young lady it took about 4 or 5 minutes. She said, "There's no way you can do an ultrasound that quick." Even while she's doing my touching me, and she was of a different persuasion. As she acted like I didn't matter. It looked like she was afraid to even touch my skin. And I was just, I never had that, I never felt that before. I never have had to witness that before. I've heard about it. I've heard of different things. I've been to the ERs where they put us out in the hallway, and I didn't understand that. I still don't until I experienced it myself. And I have dual insurance, so it shouldn't have been an insurance issue. It was, and so me and my husband, because I had to go back, and because I was upset. I was like, "No, I'm leaving. I'm done." My husband, "No, and so we was there. My husband he knows me. When I get there, it's done. So he talked to the lady that was over it, but she gave us she gave an explanation that I wasn't happy with. So I left that hospital, and I called the next day. We had a friend of ours who actually was president at the time of one of the hospitals, and I told him about what I felt had happened, and he took it among himself, and we did some stuff and did some research and had the young lady, we talked to her in a nice way, if you understand. I can't go into detail what he said, but anyway, so we go through a lot as women. And breast cancer is another thing that's going on. I'm seeing more and more people we have a prayer line at 5 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night, each night. And Elder Marsha Ragland started that about 4 years ago. And now we have about 42 people, I think, that have cancer that we've been praying for. And every time you turn around, it's something. So it's breast cancer awareness, but it's all type of stuff going on. Just talked to a friend of mine today who gave me another scare that she was told, I won't even look at her because she is here, about a health issue. We're going through a lot. So I felt that it was good for us to try to have something here in our church that we can, yeah. So I invited, Sister Gina joined the Black Women's Health Initiative. We started this about a couple of months ago. We had a discussion on Facebook where some women came together from Cincinnati, from Columbus, and from Dayton. We just had a discussion about our health care. And it was some things really scared you. We had some women who lost their siblings from dying from infant mortality rate is high. And also the young lady was pregnant and kept telling them something was wrong, and they sent her home, and she died before she was able to get back. So we're going through a whole lot. So we need to understand and learn that we have a right to talk to our doctors more than 5 minutes. Sister Gina is going to come in a minute, but before she comes, we also deal with domestic violence, which we in the church don't want to talk about. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I was married to a pastor for 18 years and went through domestic violence for 18 years. And it was bad, to the point where I even wanted to kill myself. I've tried. it's pretty, it's something when you try to take pills and you don't do that right, so, yeah, it was definitely God. And I thank God for keeping me here. But at that time, I did not want to live. It's a very humbling situation, especially when you're a first lady. Ooh, Lord. Yeah. I was going to church. I'm getting a lump in my throat. I was going to church, playing the piano, singing, doing everything that I thought I could do or should do for my church and for at that time, my husband. And it seemed like nothing that I did was right. Finally, after a friend of mine who was a minister here reached out to me and said, I need you to watch this movie. I'm like, girl, I ain't got time for no movie. I'm going through hell. I don't need to watch a movie. She said, I think you need to watch this one. She came over and got my son. At the time, I think he was maybe 2 years old, I think, 2 or 3. And the movie back then was called Enough with Jennifer Lopez. Yeah. That movie, it was as if I was watching myself being played throughout that whole movie. I cried the whole time, got mad, cried, got even madder. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do everything she did. I promise. I started kickboxing. I started learning karate. I started protecting myself. So the next time, and I knew it was going to be the next time. The next time he came up to me, I was going to be ready. And the next time he came, I was ready. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm not living like this no more. I left with the clothes on my back. I made sure my son had his stuff. Seriously, I left with the clothes on my back. I could not deal with that anymore. I had lost everything about me. People would walk up to me now and saw me back then and said, Jackie? I lost almost, 90 pounds, I think. I was 200 and, it's a big girl. Because I didn't care anymore. When you don't care, because you felt like nobody in the city cared about you. Because I don't have any family here. So that's what they do. They isolate you away from your closest kin. So my closest people were 1,100 miles away in Texas. I never told them what happened. Even after, because I didn't want my brother to be in trouble. And I knew that was going to happen. I knew what my brother was going to do. I'm like, this is my fault. I felt like it was all my fault. And even after I left and told my brother what happened, they still had to hide him, put him away in a room because he was going to make his way down here. And it just wasn't worth it for me to lose my brother over something like that. So women, if you're going through it, please get some help. You don't have to stay that way. I know it's rough, especially now because churches need to understand. I've talked to women in a lot of different churches. I've talked to first ladies in a lot of different churches, and they are going through. They are so consumed with the title that they can't see not being first lady. I didn't care about being first lady because that meant nothing to me. First lady of what? Of being beat? No, it wasn't being first lady. It was torment. It was going through, catching it from every day of the week. You know where it's going to come from. Saying the wrong words. Even when I married the husband I'm married to now, I thank God for him every day. I do. It took a minute for me to even put his arms around me. I just jumped because I thought, he finally said, "Don't you know I ain't gonna hurt you?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what the other one said too." That's in my mind because you have to get to the point where you know. Now, being able to wake up in a bed next to a man who loves you and say he loves you and does everything for you that he possibly can, it's amazing. But it took me years. It's almost 20 years now. It'll be 20 years next year. I think the last 3-4 years I finally got settled. That, okay, this is okay. He ain't going nowhere. I'm here. Love him to death. It was me. I still have to put myself in therapy. I am in therapy. It never stops. Anyway, so that's my story. Praise God for being here. Praise God that I did not kill myself in that mess and realize that I'm not alone. It's too many of us. There's a lot of, especially in dating. I just found out that dating is a big on what is the word? Not incest. Trafficking. It's really bad. And I was told the east side is where it's happening most. And I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm going to be talking to a lot of folk next week, have a meeting. Anybody want to join, let me know, to see what we can do as churches to stop the trafficking that's going on in our city. Because it's bad. It's really bad. There are different code words that they use. One young lady was at a restaurant, and her abuser went to the bathroom. They leave. You would think she'd be able to leave because he's gone, but they know exactly. Being abused, you know what to do. You know what not to do. You know what to say, what not to say. But she handed a waitress, a note that said help. And that waitress took the training so she knew to go out. She didn't even tell her boss. She went to the back room and called 911, told her what was going on, saved that baby's life. She was only 15. So we got to do something, y'all. We just can't stay inside of our churches and not worry about what's going on out there, okay? Those are our sisters and brothers. So I'm going to bring Rhonda up. She's going to let you guys know the rest of part of what's going to happen today. Promise it won't be long. I promise it's going to be good. All right, thank you. God bless.
Good afternoon. All I can say is, if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, we have similar stories. All of us have a story when it comes to our health and our health care. I have to tell you, I've known Jackie since she came to Dayton, and we've done so many things together, yet my sister and I did not see the signs. We sang together, we traveled together, and what made it so even doubly harder was the fact that her husband, we grew up with. So that hurt. That really hurt to know this was happening with my friends, because I love them both. And it's something we really have to address. But today, I'm just glad you're here, because when we have events like this, it not only informs us all, but it helps to make us better. Helps to make us better. That's what we want. And share whatever you get today with those you love. Just share it. So now I'm going to bring up my sister, Dr. Sandra Mundy, and she is going to tell us a little bit about a father's love, that father-daughter relationship, and what happens when we don't get that love. She worked very diligently to the point where she was ready to quit. She got her doctorate in ministry from United Theological Seminary, and she also has a computer science background. She's heading the scholarship committee at Mount Eden Missionary Baptist Church. She does quite a bit. She worked at the Children's Services for the county for, 31 years. So she has a variety of things under her belt. But she's going to come down and talk about that father-daughter love, absence of it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jackie happened to send me a message, I think it was Wednesday, saying, could you just read a piece of your dissertation? I'm like, how do you put about 300 pages into 3 to 5 minutes? But I do have some passages marked, and I just want to tell you that my dissertation came about. I was going to do it on leadership, and it ended up changing because I had written what's called a spiritual autobiography. And they have you do that first thing when you go to United. And I was like, okay, so I'm writing it. And I'm just writing. They said, just pour out, just write. So I did. So one of our mentors, a female, she came to me later and she said, I think you have an issue with your father. And I looked at her and said, no, I don't. I said, I really need to do this thing on leadership because leadership at my church is really bad. So I thought about it over that semester. And then the following semester, I was sitting at graduation and the Lord gave it to me. It was a father-daughter issue. And I say that because my spiritual autobiography, I talked about men all the way through it. I talked about my father, I talked about my stepfather, talked about teachers I had who were male. I talked about male friends, men I dated. It was all through there. And I didn't even realize it. And I don't know if I would have had I not gone to United. It might have hit me later on, But it was just such an eye-opening experience because of that, I'm able to make better choices. So I'm just going to read you some pieces of that. So my project was titled Absence of a Father's Love, the Impact of the Emotional Void Created in the Daughter's Heart. It was to address the hypothesis which states that if daughters are equipped by ministries addressing their emotional voids, then daughters can begin to heal from those emotional voids and build a more cohesive, loving relationship with people and more directly, men. African American fathers and daughters have not been able to bridge the gap of having that loving relationship. Many obstacles come against the father-daughter relationship, with oppression being one of the worst. Because African Americans are often oppressed, the African American daughter has a heavier burden to bear, because not only are African Americans penalized by white America, the daughter is also oppressed by African American men. This is why the daughter is considered to be at the bottom of the ladder. And I have a quote from Cicely Tyson. I was looking at the CBS morning show, and she talked about the rungs on the ladder. And she said the order at the top is the white man, then you have the white woman, the black man, and then the black woman. And she said, we're holding on to the last rung. Black women are being trampled by all those above. And she said, that's our strength. We're holding on to that last rung, and that's why we survive, because we won't let go. The expected results from my project was to engage the daughters to first realize that they have an issue with their father, and to help them understand what constitutes an emotional void, and to gain an understanding that the father-daughter issue can bring about feelings of abandonment and to gain, wait a minute, okay, I marked out some stuff here, and to gain their understanding, feelings of abandonment, and how the project will address those issues by the father-daughter, about the father-daughter relationship. I went back and looked at some of my historical foundations, because I wanted to talk a little more about the fathers, because we hear about women a lot. You don't hear about the men as much. But I have here the absence or less than satisfactory relationship that the daughter has with her father affects the daughter and all her other relationships for the rest of her life. Fathers are considered the first man a daughter loves. The relationship a daughter has with her father is the most powerful relationship that the daughter will have with the male. Fathers lay the groundwork for how the daughter should be treated, how the daughter should expect a man to behave, what the daughter should expect from a man, and how a man influences a woman, either good or bad. We all wish our fathers would have talked to us more, especially about men, to teach us, love us, protect us, be there for us. We perceive that these are some of the responsibilities of fathers. The daughter wants and needs her father to understand how powerful that he is in her daughter's life. Whether they are present or absent, we get our ideas about men from watching them. So my papers seek to use the era of slavery to explain what role that slavery had in suppressing African American families as a whole, the role that slavery portrayed in the beliefs, feelings, and achievements or lack as an African American father, daughter, and how the system of slavery systematically defiled, ostracized, and secluded African American fathers and daughters from success. African American fathers and daughters continue to suffer. Not only were we forced to separate during slavery, the breakup and scattering of African American families created a void that is still present today. It is any wonder that African American fathers in particular are having issues demonstrating love to their daughters. Nelson Mandela once said, "Freedom cannot be achieved unless the women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression." Furthermore, freedom for the African American family cannot be achieved until the fathers have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. The African American father, he had many oppressors during the time of slavery. The slave masters often had their way with the slaves' wives. Oppression cannot be overlooked in the study of absent fathers. African American men and women have consistently encountered oppression. Women's oppression takes into account the lack of fathering from the father figure. In the book, Homegirls, a Black Feminist Anthology, all right, Fly, the editor, Barbara Smith, comments on the lack of oppression of Black women when compared to their male counterparts. She states, as a group, Black men, and heartbreakingly, many Black women, refuse to acknowledge and confront issues that specifically affect Black women. Any gender issue is, by and large, dismissed as a white woman's thing, as if Black men in America or anywhere else in the world have to avoid the contempt for women that is a fundamental element of living in a patriarchy. Okay. The quotation from the editor of this book calls to attention the struggle that is still inherent in the African American woman's struggle. The long-held view about women, which dates back historically to Adam and Eve, exists in our patriarchal managed society that fails to see the scars left behind from the present-day patriarchal society. Because the African American woman has been viewed through a patriarchal lens, the oppression that is oftentimes felt but not spoken of goes unmentioned, leaving wounded women in its tracks. The father-daughter dynamic suffers from this lack of concern in regard to the oppression of African American women. The daughter wants to feel loved by a father who appears to not have the capacity, ability, or experience to help the daughter feel loved. Coupled with the patriarchal society that the daughter lives in, the daughter begins to feel unloved, unworthy, and suffer from low self-esteem. It really is, it's a fascinating topic, and I'm just gonna end by telling you my focus was to allow daughters to get to the root of issues with their fathers and begin the healing process so that forgiveness can occur. Forgiveness is the first step in recovery for daughters that will prayerfully lead to reconciliation and restoration with their fathers. However, if there is no reconciliation or restoration, daughters will still have the ability to move forward in their lives and make wise decisions in regard to the men in their lives. And I have to end with this quote from Margaret Roy, because I think I put this in my paper too. It says, "May we always have a mind through which Christ thinks, a heart through which Christ loves, a voice through which Christ speaks, a hand through which Christ helps, and be a vessel through which Christ lives." Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandra Mundy. And I have to say, we both looked back at our dad with different lenses. And it's really fascinating to read her research and see how our views have been affected by that. I saw a father who was frustrated, and I was sad because things weren't going the way he wanted them to go. We had a hard time because he became ill and just couldn't do what he wanted to do. And then Sandra saw a dad that was mean, but I saw why he was mean. He wasn't mean all the time, it's just that we saw those things that were affecting him, that oppression that she mentioned. So we all have some stories about our fathers, and it's really interesting to see how they manifest themselves in our behaviors. We see our friends and how they deal with men, and we're like, something's up here. And we know it has to do with the dad. And now I want to introduce you to Ms. Tina M. Keith Shaw. She shares her story throughout her YouTube podcast, Tina's Truth. It provides a forum to have open dialogue about topics that plague particularly the African American community. Tina is proud to say, with divine help, grace, and mercy from her Heavenly Father, she has been clean from drugs and alcohol 4.5 years. Amen. 6 years? Okay, 6 years. Tina has fought her way through depression, low self-esteem, low self-worth, and anger. They no longer have her bound. Tina M. Keith Shaw's vision for divine healing is setting the stage to help women and men to overcome their fears and break generational curses by having open, honest dialogue rooted in faith. You can find Tina's Teas as Stars Teas and Safe Haven Cleaning on Facebook. Tina M. Keith Shaw.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Sister Jackie. Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing with Sister Jackie that about my story and concerning domestic violence. So before I start with my story, I would just like to go over some statistics. And actually, everybody was actually in my message, even with the health care, because I was pregnant in my tube, so I couldn't imagine if I wasn't able to get the proper care at that time. You know what I mean? Because it was emotionally heartbreaking because I don't have any children. And then, you know, just to think that I would have to deal about something like that. So I'm going to be sharing that on my page, the importance of it, because I didn't know. I vote and I ask questions when I get there, but sometimes I don't really know exactly what I'm voting on. So as I'm being around it more and I'm learning the importance of it, I try to encourage everybody as well. So, again, yes, my name is Tina Keith Shaw. I am a survivor of domestic violence. And like I said, I'm going to share my story with you, but I would like to share some statistics. Domestic violence can be described as a power misused by one adult and an establishment of control and fear in a relationship through violence and other forms of abuse, social abuse, financial abuse, or sexual assault. The frequency of the violence can be on and off, occasional, or chronic. Domestic violence is very common in American families, and almost 20% all marriages and intimate partnerships, couples slap, shove, hit, or otherwise assault each other. Emotional abuse, verbal threats, humiliating or degrading remarks. Controlling behavior is even more common. I've been through all of that. Then my question was, after we go through and we're with someone that takes us through all that, or we allow ourselves to go through that, then my question is, in my divine healing empowerment, then I had asked the women and men questions. Why do we stay? Why did I stay? And here are some from the important. I will go into why I stay, but it says the examples on why a victim might not want to leave the abuser: fear that homelessness may be their only option if they leave, religious or cultural beliefs and practices may not support divorce, belief that two-parent households are better for children despite the abuse, judgment. Sometimes a survivor may be afraid of other people, that they're going to negatively judge them. None will believe them. No one will believe them. Like in your case, if you did tell somebody in the church, because he's quote unquote a pastor, they just won't believe you. Safety reasons, that was one of mine. Fear of punishment and shame. Just feeling kind of dumb about staying in it. Like, you know, you just rather keep it to yourself because you continue to go back. Some of us anyway. Survivors often of domestic abuse often suffer from anxiety, insomnia, and post-traumatic disorder symptoms, such as panic attacks, flashbacks of the abuse. Now, I've been through all of them. I've been through every last one of them. So I'm going to take you back on how I was introduced into domestic violence. When I was born into a volatile family. My grandmother was being abused by my grandfather. So actually, being in a family like that, that was normal for me. It's the life I'm living now, this peaceful, beautiful life, is abnormal. But it's a beautiful place to be in. But the first abuse that I saw was my grandfather had I don't know what took place, but I know it was a holiday. And we stayed, it was off of 3rd Street here, and she stayed it was apartment buildings, and it was 3 stories up. And whatever happened, my grandfather had her, and he had her by her ankles. Now, you have to be very strong to hold somebody like that. And he had her over like such. And I remember just everybody freaking out and crying, my mom, my aunts and uncles, everybody was just so upset. And I remember tugging on my granddaddy's shirt, and he looked down, and I begged him to not kill my grandmother. And he looked down at me, and he called me Red Baby, and he said, the only reason why, and he took her and he slung her back. And when he slung her back, she fell through this door, and everybody tried to catch her, and it was, they were so happy she didn't fall, but they was just nervous. My grandmother was so nervous, and she's gone now. And it's like the older I get, see, you don't know, like, even why my grandmother went through that. You don't know. And now that I'm grown and have been through it, it makes my heart so heavy that my grandmother had to be subjected, or that she allowed herself to go through it. But that was the first time I saw it. And then my uncle and my mother would fight like 2 people off the street. To this day, when I see a red hot sauce bottle, instantly it goes back. I'm 54 years old, and this happened maybe when I was about 5, maybe. They were fighting, and my mother picked up a hot sauce bottle and hit him in the head with it, and blood was everywhere. So again, this was the norm. Verbal abuse was very rapid in our house. Very common, not in only my household, but in a lot of black households that I went in. I mean, I wasn't called out of my name, my mother and them didn't call me out of my name as far as profanity, but, of course, get your A in here, stuff like that. But I'm saying different households we've been in, I've heard where, friends of mine have been called B's and all kind of stuff, and that's just what's the norm for their household. But just abrasive, just talking so abrasive, just no love, just a matter of fact, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't any love. And so now that I'm older, I realize that maybe my great-grandmother wasn't taught any other way. And that's all she knew. And I realized that a person can only give you what they had, right? My family were church goers, church members for years, but I never really saw any difference in their lifestyle, So when I gave my life to Christ and I noticed the difference, I was kind of made fun of, so to speak, holy roller, that type of thing, because it was abnormal for them to see somebody really living like that. You know what I'm saying? According to the word, the best I could, right? So now, we moving forward. My mom leaves her household. Now, she saw her mother get abused, so now my mother moves out, and she gets with my my brother's father, who came in my life at 2 months, and 2 months when I was 2 months old, and they fought all the time. Now, I don't think my mother sat out the house and said, you know what, I'm going to be just like my mother, and I'm going to get me a guy that's going to abuse me as well. But some things are learned behavior from just being in that. And because after my grandfather did that to my grandmother, he was up the next day. As a matter of fact, my grandmother was cooking whitey fish and potatoes. It was the norm. You understand what I'm saying? So even though I was younger, and my mom, they would fight, and he even fought my grandmother. My grandmother would come over to help my mom, and he fought her. I remember the police coming, and they asking us who want to go with who. Of course, I'm staying with my mother. Well, my little brother, who I talk about to this day, he wanted to go with his daddy. I mean, I remember that being very strange, but he just did. He was a little boy. But those are early memories of domestic violence all the time. Trying to control my mother. She loved to skate. She loved to go out. Skating was her thing, But he was a jealous man when it came to that. And so he fought my mother for that. Mind you, he cheated all the time. I'll get back around to that. Okay, so my mom go through that. She leaves him. She gets married to who I call my stepfather. Same thing. Now, it got a little more in detail as I got older. They fought a lot for the same reasons, her going skating, just jealous. My mother's a pretty woman, just jealous of her, you know. And one time in particular, he hit my mom in the head with a pistol. And we saw blood, and my mother used to tell me all the time, because I was a very emotional and very aggressive kid, and I didn't really care how little I was when it came to my mother. I'm fighting, I'm standing tall with my mother, and I didn't care. She used to always tell me, Tina, you don't have to worry about a baby until you see blood. Now that I'm 54, it just, what? Till I see blood, I mean, really? You know what I'm saying? Is this, why should I have to see blood? It's what, but I'm saying that was my mother's mentality. Instead of saying, I'm leaving, she knew it was going to happen again, but don't worry about it until you see blood. That's when you get nervous or when you call someone. So again, that was the norm for me, right? So I see blood. So my brother and I, we see the blood. Now my brother, I may have been 8, and I'm 4 years older than him. Somehow or another, he was gone. Nobody knows where he went. Well, bless his heart, he took the gun from where we grew up in Westwood Avenue, and he went and ran all the way to Superior with a loaded pistol, getting to his father, which was a safe haven for him. He come back, the father come back, they're fighting. Again, that's all I knew. Now it's my turn. I jumped off the porch early, so I know about abortion and the right and all that, because I was 13 when I got pregnant, and my mother made me have abortion twice. Because I got pregnant at 13 twice, once in January and another in December. At that time, I guess my mother felt like she was doing the right thing because I was too young, you know what I mean? I used to have mixed feelings about it, but I know that my mother, with all her heart, wasn't doing it to deprive me of being a parent. It was simply I was too young, and she wanted me to have a future. So that went on. I, like I said, did that and started dating. I think my first abuse was at 14 years old, my little first boyfriend. Now, the flip side of that is I was aggressive. I caught him with a girl, and I went beyond the average of going off. We fought in school. I got suspended. You see what I mean? But you understand that's all I know. Just share with you how it went. Again, it was learned behavior. We didn't talk about things in our house. We hollered. My granny had a very loud voice. Do what I say, not what I do, you know, that type of thing. So I was hurt, and the only way to handle that was through physical. And that's what I did. And not just with my boyfriends, with anybody. It's just all I knew. So moving forward, I'm 16 years old. I'm fast. You know, I'm very, I do well in school. Now I'm starting to skip school a little bit. I meet a guy, he's flashy. I get in the car with him. He's saying all the right things. He's older. You can't tell me nothing. My granny said, you know, you're smelling y'all know what they say, when you old folks used to say. I get with him not knowing that he comes from a family of men that abuse women horribly. His father shot his mother while holding him. And I think shot him in the leg, his lower leg, and his testicles, where they didn't think he could have kids because she was late coming from church. He would share that story and cry all the time. He had a brother that was in penitentiary for life for setting a girl on fire. He had another brother that just beat women horribly. Well, I heard all of that, and, you know, hey, it's not going to, you know, just young enough. Not going to happen to me. He treats me nice, you know. He had money. You know, I'm doing it. He got a Cadillac, what? You know. Well, one day, he picks me up from school, and I was talking to some child, you know, my peers at school, and he said, what was y'all talking about? I was like, oh, nothing, just talking. And he was like, well, I don't want you talking to them anymore. And I'm like, what? Boy, please. Now, listen, I said, boy, please. And all I remember is my face being on that glass of that Cadillac. And it just shook me like, oh, my God. And was kind of feisty because I told you I was fighting all the time, but I knew that he wasn't the type for me to try to swing back. I knew that, and I didn't. And so he talked, I'm sorry, you know what I'm saying? Don't talk to me like that, baby. I didn't mean to hurt you, yada, yada. Take me home, take me home. He took me home. I think I didn't talk to him for a couple of days. Moving forward, I ended up leaving, going to school. He would take me to school. I left up out of my house, moved in with him. Then it began, when I left and came home from school, he would smell my underwear. Once he did that, why did it take you so long to get from your granny's house to here when you was just going down there to get some clothes? Well, I was talking to my granny and them. Yeah, you probably was with so-and-so and so-and-so. So he took me upstairs. I didn't know what he was doing, but at that time, he had some extension cords that he tied me up to the bed with, and then the other extension cords, he chose to beat me with them. So he would beat me with the extension cords until he got tired, and then he would keep me there. Keep me up there, nurse my wounds and all that, because I had webs all on my body, you know, from the back down. And then he would want to, after that, of course, have sex. And you better act like you like it, or you'll get choked out. So I learned to pretend that I liked things at an early age that I didn't like. I kept going back, so we asked myself, that's the question, why did we go back? So we read on there, fear, that was one of them, fear. When I did leave him, he slept on my granny's back porch. I was the president of HFA in school, and I remember I had some baked cookies, and I was on my way to school. I always did well when I was away from him. And he kidnapped me and put me in a trunk on my way to school. My grandmother, no one knew where I was. They just thought that I had just did my usual. She done left again. But I think it was something in my granny that knew. I don't believe she left this time. I believe we need to go check. Now, I'm upstairs tied up, and I hear my mother downstairs asking, am I there? But I can't say anything because I'm all the way in the back. But I'm crying and I'm begging, Mama, please just come in here. Bogart your way in. I'm praying, you know, God, if you let me through this, I promise I'm not coming back here no more, you know. He told her, oh, no, Miss So-and-so, I didn't know, I haven't seen her, you know. She said, all right. I could tell my mother kind of knew it was something, but she really didn't have no proof. Plus, she couldn't just, you know, like I said, just Bogart her way in. She didn't really have any proof. Well, my mother leave, he comes up, your mother don't care nothing about you. You know, that's what they do. She don't care anything about you because if she did, you only 16. She seemed like she would have been over here. Don't nobody care nothing about you but me, but I'm trying to teach you discipline. So I'm thinking about it in my mind, yeah, okay. Thinking of a way to get away from here. So I tried to get away. One of his friends told, I had almost made it, almost to my house. He drove up, kidnapped me again. This time, when he beat me with the extension cords, he put me in some bath water. Now, while I'm in the bath water, he's sitting in there. I don't know what he was doing in the other room. I don't know what he had planned, but I guess it was for me to get wet. And this time, he was going to beat me while I was wet. Again, I jump out the window because he had a radio that he said he was going to throw in the water. So I jumped out the window, two-story house. I jumped out, and I was naked, running through the neighborhood off of West Stewart. I knocked on 2 doors. 2 women looked at the door and said, where are your clothes, and shut the door. But it was another lady, the 3rd house I went to, and she opened up the door, and she had all boys, and she came and told them to give me a cover. She said, come on in here, baby, and covered me up. And she said, I'm going to call the police. What is your mother's number? Police came. My mom came. They ended up catching him through the alley. He fought the police. He had no fear of the police also. So a lot of times when you're dealing with somebody sadistic and sick and demonic like that, they don't have a fear of authority. You know how some people, you can say, I'm going to call the police, and it kind of put fear in them. He didn't care. He had been in juvenile on and on all his life. So the police, he had run-ins with them all the time. He never was scared. He would fight them. He had been beat all in his head by him. The billy club, it never deterred him, nor did it scare him. Well, I left and got away from him. He goes to penitentiary because he ended up shooting somebody in the head. Another girl he was with, she survived, but that's where he is to this day. by doing something else to somebody else. So I'm a survivor from getting away from him, thank God. But unfortunately, the story just don't end there. Because at this point, this is all I know. You know, girl, why didn't you leave? I can't tell you that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I thought he wasn't going to do it again. Maybe I thought he was going to change, like he said. I don't know. But the bottom line of it all is low self-esteem and low self-worth. Feeling like I didn't deserve. And again, too, learned behavior. Nobody else went and left. My grandmother didn't leave my granddaddy. My mother didn't leave my father. They stayed until they got, tired. But look how many years that went. So, okay, we moving on. Now I'm with different guys that I'm going with, and the abuse gets worse than that, where there are guns in places that don't belong. I'll shoot you, I'll kill you, I'll this to that. Kidnapped as well, raped continuously by my significant others or my husband. I didn't even know that it was called rape because nobody had ever stopped when I said no. So I didn't know that that was rape until I talked to a therapist. Tina, that was rape. You've been getting raped all that time. I didn't know that. It's that anytime you say no and they continue, that's rape. I didn't know that. And I'm not an ignorant person. I just did not know that. Because in any of my relationships, nobody stopped when I said no. They just didn't. And so I went through that. Then I get married. I've been married twice, but my first marriage, I didn't go through that. But my second marriage, which is this is where the turnaround comes, why I'm here today. When I went through that with him, so I can't, you see my fist, I can't fold that from pushing. Now, he wasn't with his fist, but he pushed a lot. So when he pushed me, I broke 3 fingers. Then when he pushed me another time, I broke my ankle. Now, mind you, the wild life that I'm sharing with y'all in this little bit of short time, nothing was ever broken or anything like that. And I mean, I was a pretty roughneck, especially after I had been with the guy when I was 16. So the guys that kind of came after him, to me, were kind of soft. So when I got married to my first husband, it took Pastor Bill Mitchell to tell me that I had my strength and weaknesses mixed up. See, what you think is strength is actually a weak man. Because this man here allows you to talk like that. You expect him to hit you. You're saying you don't, but you expect that. You want to fight. And he's not fighting. My first husband just wasn't, he just didn't. Very calm-natured. But see, that's all I knew. And I brought that energy into my marriage. And I got violent and would tear up things. And so, women can abuse men as well. And I definitely abused him verbally in the worst way. I talked about him under his clothes, out of his clothes, I'm talking about horribly. But after Pastor Mitchell had told me that stuck with me and has stuck with me for the rest of my life. He told me that I had my strength in men and my weaknesses mixed up. So the men that you thought were strong were actually very weak. And this man here that's not putting his hands on you is actually very strong, especially with the things that you said you have said to this man and still have your teeth. That's what he said. So now like I said, I'm married, and he kind of reminded me of the 16-year-old that I was with, except he didn't do the tying up. But he was about there, about even. But now I'm in my 40s and I'm dealing with this. So I'm thinking, this is just, I don't know, my decisions, not making wise decisions, self-sabotaging. When something wasn't going wrong, I'll create something. Because again, that's all that I knew. So what I began to do is, I got me a therapist, but I began to pray, and I started speaking those things that be not as though they were. I started saying, I am healed, I am free, I am loved, I am forgiving, I am sober, because I ended up relapsing. I had got clean and I started relapsing. And then when my brother went to penitentiary, who I'm very, very close with, that same little boy that ran with that gun, I've always been a protector for him, because I felt like I had to be. And they say that as well, that the older siblings take that role when the parents are just out of line. They just do. The siblings stick together, and I was a protector for him. So when he went, I had a nervous breakdown. I quit my jobs. I didn't want to do anything. I just laid around. My mental health was deteriorating. I didn't want to do nothing. Then I'm in this toxic marriage that I was just in. And I don't know if it was that, like I said, I felt familiar, or if I felt like, this is my second marriage, you know what I mean? Maybe it'll work, maybe not, I don't know. But I just knew this last time that this is where I become enough. You took boxing. I had been refraining from going there with him because it was a many a times that I had a pistol at his head when he was asleep, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. As much as he did, I still, whatever I thought was love, that's what it was, I thought, for him. Because I couldn't have never loved anybody and I didn't love myself. So when I was cooking and I was just like I said, I had a nervous breakdown. I'm in there cooking still. I'm just existing. But I'm cooking and my stepson is in the bed. And so he's like, do you hear me talking to you? I got on headphones. And I'm like, what? Yeah, okay, go on. So he gets angry and he snatches the head thing off. And when he did that, I knew it was a wrap. I just took the grease from everything. And I just threw it on him. And I ran to go and get the pistol, and I don't even remember where it was. I think I put it up because of my stepson being there. But when I looked in the room and I saw my stepson witnessing the exact same thing that I had been witnessing all my life, I said, he can't come back here because I'm going to kill him, and I know that. I'm not calling the police. They knew us by name. We called them so much. They, Ms. Shaw, are you going to go and press charges this time? So let's talk about that. I would press charges and do all those things and then get mad if the police use too much strong force. Or don't take all that. I'm here for you. You called us. But you see how sick I was? You see what I'm saying? Then we'll go and bail him out. Then wouldn't show up to court to the point where the state start picking it up. Like, we don't care if you show up or not. We're picking it up. To the point where a sergeant on his day off came to my door and said, now this ain't nobody but God, you know that. Tina, please leave him. He's going to kill you or you're going to kill him. You do know you have a right to protect yourself. And I said, are you saying killing? I said, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you, you have a right to kill yourself. I said, kill yourself. Protect yourself. And he said, my daughter died. And I kept telling her to leave. And she didn't. She kept going back. And he saw this in me, And I think that's what he does now. If he see it, he just shares. He tries to share with them to leave, you know what I'm saying? And he came on a day off. So you know that it was on his heart to tell me that he saw this not going anywhere. Well, I finally did leave that situation. I got free from that. After I did that with the grease, I didn't want him back anymore. And it seemed like when he left, the flowers started growing. It got lighter. I can pray, and it seemed like I just knew. Everything was just so much lighter. Even though I was still going through depression, but just that demonic, that thing was hovering around my house was gone. Now, I brought a lot to the table too, so it's not like I'm trying to make up excuses, but I'm telling you that I'm not sitting here like I was a bed of roses, because I just said that I can get physical as well. But when I changed and I prayed out and cried out and God heard me, everything else around me changed. And I just started holding on. If I couldn't do it, my tears began to pray for me. Because sometimes you don't have words to say. You just don't know what to say. But your tears will cry out for you. And God heard my cry. Thank you. And I desired to change. I said, thank you for my sobriety while I was still getting high. Thank you that I don't have another drink while I was yet drinking.
thank you for a job when I didn't have one. But I knew that God would never leave me nor forsake me, and that's something that could none of them take from me. They couldn't take away my faith. They couldn't break me, is what they were trying to do. And I knew it was the adversary using them to try to get to me because of the call on my life. So now everything that I've been through and that I still can go through because of the residue of me going through all that I've been through from the time I was entered into this world. I'm just so grateful that I made a decision to love Tina today, because I didn't know what love was. Thank you. I just didn't know. I didn't see it before me, because you can't say you love my mother and you beat my mother. My granddaddy couldn't say you love my grandmother and you did that to my grandmother. So when you said about the father, I said, that is so true. What was my example? My biological father wasn't in my life, so I already knew what it felt like to be rejected. And then you get your stepfathers that are in your life that step up, because I don't call them stepfathers, I said they step up. They were good to me, but you wasn't good to my mother. So when you're not good to my mother, you're not good to me. And so that's what I saw. That was my example of what relationships were like. And then you start going to church and you start seeing how, again, Pastor Mitchell loved on Elder Martha, Mother Marvis, how he loved on her, how he taught us how the men, how it should be. And you start learning. And it was so different than anything that I had ever been around. So it was kind of like, this is for real? Like people can actually, be angry and not fight. You know what I'm saying? You can actually have an argument without cussing somebody out. Like this is something. So, and I seen it for myself, not with just him, but other men. I don't know what all went on, but I do know also that it was a lot of sisters that I did talk to that went through abuse in the home, and they were afraid to share what they were going through. So when you shared your story, when you and I talked, I said I knew so well. I know a lot of pastors' wives that I have talked to that were being abused, and they told and nothing happened. I know a lot of pastors that verbally abused their wives and would talk highly of the other sisters in the church in front of them to humiliate them. I've seen that, and that's horrible. So they may not have went through physical abuse like me, but abuse is abuse. Just like a drug is a drug. Alcohol is a drug, just like crack cocaine. So I went to Artemis. So if there's anyone that has went through that, I went through Artemis. That's a great organization. They went to court with me for my divorce. They didn't want me to have to look or say anything to him whatsoever. They could not tell me what to do, but they advised me on, to make decisions on, they would give me information. They fed me, because like I said, I didn't want to reach out to family. I wasn't talking. They would call me. I had a case manager. They had a pantry there where you can come and get food, clothes, or whatever the case may be. Artemis is a place for, and they can help you too to get safe, to get somewhere safe. So if it's anybody that is going through anything like that, Artemis is a great place to start. Also, your church, just depending on the church you go to. That's just real. And I told Sister Jackie, I said, one thing about me now, I don't know if you want me to speak because I'm pretty raw, but I know where I'm at, and I know my audience today, but I don't sugarcoat anything about anything. And I was hurt, spiritually abused in the church because people use my past against me, but yet I'm in the church. Now make it make sense. So if I come and I tell you my testimony and I'm telling you all that I'm just telling y'all right now, you hold that against me because I was promiscuous when I was young, and now you feeling some type of way thinking your husband or somebody looking at me when actually none of them my type anyway. So I don't know why you're insecure about it. Because I like thugs even though I was saved.
Just keeping it real. It's all right? So I didn't get it. The women that got along well with me is the mothers of the church, the mothers that got up at 4 in the morning and we laid prostrate before God and cried out to God and told me, don't you change nothing about what you're doing. You continue to let God use you. They're not going to like you. And anybody, if you know any man or woman of God, they weren't liked anyway. Most of them were not liked. So you don't let that stop you. You keep going. And so that's what I'm doing. Sharing my story and being transparent about my life and letting other people know that we can make it. We can get through it. Sometimes we got to go through it to get to it. But I know man may fail. My mama has even failed me. My daddy sure did. My stepfathers, step-up fathers, everybody. To be honest, everybody but God. And I mean, they use that as a cliche. And, won't he do it? I don't say all that because I'm just saying he will, and he has in my life. And I'm a living testimony about it. You see what I'm saying? So what was meant to break me made me stronger and made me come out and tell my story. So I have a book coming out, and it's called Tina's Truth. And I'm sharing a lot more than I share here. And this was just a little bit, so you can about imagine all that I have really been throughout my life. And I hold myself accountable for whatever I've done. I've asked for forgiveness. I went to people and asked for forgiveness, But we have to forgive ourselves, too. Not just by being in a relationship, but forgive yourself if you mess up with God. I think a lot of us sometimes put him in a box and we feel like that's what man do to us, but he's not that way. He said he'll never leave me nor forsake me, and he didn't. I'm talking about when I knew him and turned my back on him and went on back to what he had brought me out of. He still yet loved me. He still yet loved me in the midst of my sin. When I went back to selling dope, even after he got me sober, and then I relapsed again, the door was still open. Prayer line never shut down. Wasn't no such thing as no internet connection and all that. He heard my cry and he delivered me. I just want to encourage you, not just with domestic violence, but just anything that we're going through in life, that we can make it. I need you. You need me. We need each other. And if it wasn't for other people to come in and help me throughout my journey that I've been through, I don't know where I'd be. And most of my people were strangers. They didn't even know me. So I know about those angels here we have on earth that'll come in and help you. That police officer on the day off coming to tell me, cared about me, probably couldn't sleep thinking about it, So that's my story, but I want to tell you, this is my scripture. I'm going to let you go, but this is my scripture. Oh, and if you have any questions too. But this is a scripture of mine that I just want to say. Psalm 73:26. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Nehemiah 8:10. Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And my favorite, well, I have many, but this one here, I don't know. This is what I held on to when I felt like I was in hell, literally, and my mind was leaving me, and I could feel my brain just snapping. My mind was snapping, and I knew it was, and I just couldn't do anything else but just cry out. But Romans 8:28, when I felt like I wasn't loved, and I felt like, God, I done let you down so much. I done just keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And that's a form of insanity. But he said, for I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that in Christ Jesus our Lord. And with that, I'm going to close. Be encouraged. Thank you for having me.
Tina's Truth. Miss Tina, thank you for sharing. I know talking about situations like that is not easy. And my sister and I, we witnessed abuse when it came to our mother with my stepfather. And we never noticed any physical things going on, but there was mental, there was emotional, he just was not the person that would treat her well. And in other places in the church, he was a deacon. He was known as somebody who could tell jokes and was just always happy on the outside. But it just made me wonder, what is it that abusers have seen? What have they been influenced by? How have they been treated by this world to just be so irrational about how they relate to people? What is it? Nothing ever made sense. And I was just glad my brother moved to Chicago. He got married and moved because I remember this one day in my mother's kitchen. She doesn't remember, but I do like it was yesterday. She stood between him and my stepfather because he was about to wear him out. And he was a little older, so he would have been on the floor. And my mother never wanted anything like that to happen because he would go and run and get a gun if he wanted to and threaten. So we lived with this for 35 years. And for those who experience abuse, for those who witness it, it's awful. When you love them, it's awful. And my sister and I, we wonder, why is it we're not married yet? We don't take any foolishness. We know what we deserve. And so I can wait. I said, Lord, it's fine. I'm going to wait. And my choices have been so much better because based on Sandra's research, I know so much better now. Because we were young. When our father died, I was 15. She was 12, and my brother and sister were 6. So it was a lifetime without him, it feels like. But I still have my father's influence. My mother tells me every day, you're Demetrius in a dress. Just like your father. And I am, I admit it, I am. But I have his influence. Okay, so now we're going to hear from Miss Gina Davidson, a God-fearing nurse of 36 years. She's been a diligent and proficient patient advocate and caregiver. She treats all of her patients as if they are family, without hesitation, even when the reception may be less than favorable. Gina has a way of helping people understand what is going on with them. A wife, 33 years, mother of 4 young adult ladies, Gina continues to keep her family close to her heart. She has worked full-time while raising a family and all the while keeping the family up front and center. As a student and new nurse, she worked on a medical surgical floor, then advanced to a step-down respiratory unit, all the while mingling with ICU and CCU nursing. 8 years into her career, Gina had a high-risk pregnancy. Causing her to take a sabbatical from her nursing career. She resumed her career in home health care, which she found very rewarding. Being in her patient's home, Gina continued to shine at caregiving, giving her patients strength, hope, and encouragement to get through whatever they may be facing, all the while comforting them and their families through adversity. Gina went from being a case manager to an IV nurse, then she performed as an LPN case manager during her home care career. She precepted new nurses as well as new employees and received numerous recognitions from families, patients, and coworkers during her home care tenure. In the home care setting, Gina developed a love for wound care where the actual healing could be physically observed. Eventually, She became a certified wound and ostomy nurse, and in 2017 was recognized for her excellence in clinical practice from a local healthcare system. Gina had gotten all of her children out of high school, and when her triplet girls started college, she too felt the pull to further her education. Congratulations. She worked hard on her studies, loving the new information she received, and graduated with her Bachelor of Science in Nursing just prior to her triplet daughter's graduation. After 23 years of community nursing, Gina made the decision to come out of the field and pursue nursing back to the inpatient arena. She presides now as an inpatient wound ostomy nurse with a local healthcare system where she prayerfully presents herself to do God's work and counts it a privilege to care for his people. Her work ethics come from Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. I present to you Gina Davidson.
I'm like, wow, who is that person? I'm like, I'm too young. That didn't all happen, did it? Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Y'all need to stretch? Yeah, I want y'all to stretch. I have some gifts for you, too. And I don't have no numbers. Everybody gets one. Somebody's car is going off out there. You want to know? Stacy. Huh? Oh, it's not a black one? What about a white one? Okay.
Nene, bring me a pink one.
Did everybody get one? No, I didn't.
Nene, come on.
Diona's got two. Goodbye. Thank you. Oh, I'm going backwards. No wonder. Okay, there we go.
Yay. Good job, Nene. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Hope y'all enjoy your free gifts and tote. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I had a great aunt who I was born on her birthday. She had breast cancer, but she was a much older lady. She was in her 80s, late 80s, pushing 90. Still a very dear subject to my heart. And so when Jackie asked me, and I was like, yes, I'll be glad to present breast cancer awareness. Other than skin cancer, breast cancer is the most common cancer among American women. White women are slightly more likely to develop breast cancer, but black women are more likely to develop more aggressive, more advanced stage breast cancer. Black women are also more likely to die from breast cancer. Okay, do I have to hit this, Kevin, or will it go?
I don't think we really know the full answer to that question right now, and that's hard because it's personal to me. But what we do know is that younger women who are African American tend to be diagnosed with early breast cancer more often than their counterparts. And so for that reason, we'd like for young African American women to, one, be aware of what your breasts normally look and feel like, and follow up with your doctor if you notice something not quite right. Then the second thing, go ahead and have those conversations with your family members to learn more about what your cancer history is and what your family's cancer history is.
So, the best way to find out about breast cancer and what's going on with your breast, of course, self-exams, but also mammograms.
I don't think we really know
Okay,
the
Kevin,
full
I need
answer to that
switch it the
question
next
right now.
slide. There we go. Mammograms are the best way to find breast cancer early. And that is a key a lot of times, is to find it early, when it's easier to treat and before it's big enough to feel or cause symptoms. So, I have had numerous patients in home care and also in the hospital, and all of them that I can think of were African American, where they have waited to seek help. My daughter has a friend that we've discussed a little bit. I tried to get her here today, but she did not make it. Hopefully she'll watch. Breast cancer will be very invasive if it's not stopped. And we've had patients come in with what we call fungating tumors, and it's just awful. You can't even tell that there's a breast there because there's so much, the cancer comes outside of the body. And I had one lady, and she didn't care that she had this cancer on her breast. She was more concerned because it had an odor. Yes, it did have an odor, and there's things we can do to help the odor. But in my mind, I'm like, why doesn't she get that? Why did she wait? Don't wait, y'all, don't wait. Go and get help, get treatment, find out what's going on. I don't know if people just don't want to deal with it or they're scared or what, but get treatment. Get it early and get what you need so it doesn't get worse. So what is breast cancer? Seems like a simple question, but let's research to see how simple it really is. A breast is made up of three main parts: lobules, ducts, and connective tissue. The lobules are the glands that produce milk. The ducts are the tubes that carry milk to the nipple. The connective tissue, which consists of fibrous and fatty tissue, surrounds and holds everything together. And this is a diagram of the breast that shows the locations of the lobules, the lobe, duct, areola, nipple, and fat. Breast cancer is a disease in which the cells of the breast grow out of control. There are different kinds of breast cancer, and the kind of breast cancer depends on which cells in the breast turn into the cancer. I'm going to get good at this, I hope. Most breast cancers begin in the ducts or lobules. Breast cancer can spread outside the breast through blood vessels and lymph vessels. And when breast cancer spreads to other parts of the body, it is said to have metastasized. Oops, did I hit too many? I did. So, the most common kinds of breast cancer are invasive ductal carcinoma, where the cancer cells begin in the ducts and then grow outside the ducts into other parts of the breast tissue. It does not go to other parts of the body. It does not metastasize. It just stays there with the breast. Invasive lobular carcinoma, I have to talk slower, are cancer cells that begin in the lobules and then spread from the lobules to the breast tissues that are close by. These invasive cancer cells can also spread to other parts of the body. So both cancers can be invasive, but only lobular cancer, not ductal cancer, will metastasize or spread to other parts of the body. There are several other less common kinds of cancers, but I will not present them here today. So what are some symptoms of breast cancer? I thought I already clicked it. There we go. Some warning signs are a new lump in the breast or underarm, under here, because you do have breast tissue here. Thickening or swelling of part of the breast, irritation or dimpling of the breast skin, redness or flaky skin in the nipple area or the breast. And different people have different symptoms of breast cancer. And some people don't have symptoms at all, and that really gets difficult. Some other symptoms of breast cancer: pulling in the nipple or pain in the nipple area, nipple discharge other than breast milk, including blood. Some women get where the cancer causes blood to come through the nipple. Any change in the size or shape of the breast, and pain in any area of the breast. So if you have any signs or symptoms, be sure to see your doctor right away. Don't wait. Oops, go back. So what is a normal breast? No breast is typical. What is normal for you may not be normal for another woman. Most women say their breasts feel lumpy or uneven, and the way your breasts look and feel can be affected by your period, having children, losing or gaining weight, and taking certain medications. Breasts also tend to change as you age. Everybody knows what gravity does. Pulls them down. So what is a mammogram? The detestable test. A mammogram is an X-ray picture of the breast. Doctors use a mammogram to look for early signs of breast cancer. Regular mammograms can find breast cancer early, sometimes up to 3 years before you can feel it. Yes, that's why it is important to get your mammograms, even though it's a little uncomfortable. How is a mammogram done? You will stand in front of the special X-ray machine. A technologist will place your breast on a plastic plate, and another plate will firmly press the breast from above. I know, y'all, but it's only temporary. It's uncomfortable for temporary. The plates will flatten the breast, holding it still until the X-ray is being taken. And you will feel some pressure, and the steps are repeated to make a side view of the breast as well. And then the other breast is X-rayed in the same way as the other, and you'll wait until the technologist checks the X-rays to make sure the pictures don't need to be redone. Please, Lord, let them do it right the first time. Keep in mind that the technologist cannot tell you the results of your mammogram. Each woman's mammogram may look a little different because all breasts are a little different. So remember, having a mammogram is uncomfortable for most women, and some women it can really be painful. A mammogram takes only a few moments though, and the discomfort is over soon. What you feel depends on the size, on the skill of the technologist. So if you go to one center and you say, that was great, it wasn't that hateful, make sure you go back there again. Get her name, and I'm serious, go back there, go back. The size of your breast and how much they need to be pressed. Tips for getting a mammogram. Try not to get it around the week of your period or during your period because your breasts are already going to be tender and swollen. On the day of your mammogram, don't wear deodorant, don't wear perfume, don't wear powder, because those products can show up as white spots on the X-ray, and that can give you a false negative, a false positive. Some women prefer to wear a top with a skirt or pants instead of a dress because you have to undress from the waist up. So it's easier just to put a shirt on than take it off and then you're good. This is an example of a normal mammogram. Each woman's mammogram may look a little bit different because all breasts are a little different. Some women have what they call dense breast tissue.
When you get the results of your mammogram, you may also get a note telling you that you have dense breast. I'm Dr. Tamika Fairley. I'll explain what that means and why it's important. A woman's breast has 3 kinds of tissue. Glandular tissue, which includes the part of the breast that makes milk, called the lobes, and the tubes that carry the milk to the nipple, called ducts. Fibrous tissue, which holds the breast tissue in place, and fatty tissue, which fills the space between the fibrous tissue, lobes, and ducts. It gives the breast their size and shape. Breast density reflects the amount of fibrous and glandular tissue in a woman's breast compared to the amount of fatty tissue, as seen on a mammogram. In a mammography report, breast density is assigned to one of 4 categories. The breasts are almost entirely fatty. A few areas of dense tissue are scattered throughout the breast. The breasts are evenly dense throughout, or the breasts are extremely dense. Women in the first 2 categories are said to have fatty breast. Women in the second 2 categories are said to have dense breast. About half of women who are 40 or older have dense breast. Women with dense breast have a higher chance of getting breast cancer. The more dense your breasts are, the higher your risk. This mammogram shows a mostly fatty breast, and this mammogram shows a dense breast. Dense tissue can hide cancers. The fibrous and glandular tissue looks white on a mammogram, and so does a possible tumor. Since it's hard to tell the difference between a tumor and dense breast tissue, a small tumor may be missed. If you have dense breast, talk to your doctor about your risk of getting breast cancer. Dense breasts are just one of several risk factors for breast cancer. Your doctor will also consider other factors, like your age and family history of cancer. Talk with your doctor about how often you should be screened and which tests are right for you. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/cancer.
Thank you, Kevin. So we're talking about getting mammograms, and there's a cost to that. So we need to address the issue of cost, because some women may say, I don't have insurance, I can't get a mammogram. And there are ways to get mammograms without having to pay for it. Most insurance nowadays do cover the cost of a biannual or annual mammograms. And there are also other alternatives. They have the mobile breasts that go out and you just sign up and they do it and that's it and it's done. And those are professional and totally legitimate. So don't hesitate to use them if you have to. So are you eligible for free or low-cost screenings? You can if you don't have insurance or your insurance does not cover screening exams. Your yearly income is at or below 250% of the federal poverty level, and I'm like, goodness. You are between 40 and 64 years of age for breast screening. You are between 21 and 64 years of age for cervical cancer screening. And certain women who are younger or older may qualify for screening services as well. To see if you qualify or if you need a low cost or know someone that needs free breast or cervical screening, this is the number you can contact. What are the risk factors for breast cancers? Studies have shown that your risk for breast cancer is due to a combination of factors. The main factors that influence your risk include being a woman and getting older. That's not fair. Most breast cancers are found in women who are 50 years of age or older. Some women will get breast cancer even without any risk factors. Having a risk factor does not mean you will get the disease, and not all risk factors have the same effect. Most women have some risk factors, but most women do not get breast cancer. Talk with your doctor about ways you can lower your risk and about screening for your breast cancer. And I'm talking a lot about talking to your doctors. Have a doctor that you can trust. That's a whole nother issue, and Jackie talked a little bit about it, but get one that you can trust and that you can feel free to ask questions and that you feel they are listening to you when you're talking to them and that will give you answers. And if they don't have answers, they can say, well, I will find out. Because that's only human. Not one doctor knows everything. But if they're willing to help you, then that's a good doctor, and that's what you want. Risk factors can be broken down into 2 different categories. Some you cannot change, and some you can. Risk factors, that you cannot change: getting older, Genetic mutations, where women who have inherited changes or mutations to certain genes, such as BRCA1 and BRCA2, are at higher risk for breast and ovarian cancer. Reproductive history, having dense breasts. And let me back up to the reproductive history, because when a woman has started her menstrual cycle before age 12 and started menopause after age 55, you're more likely to be at risk for getting breast cancer because of you're having the hormones in your body longer. Yeah, it's really wild. Having the dense breasts, personal history of breast cancer. We have had women that have had surgery, chemo, radiation, got their new breast implants and all that, and they still ended up with cancer again. It's not unusual, so that does put you at a higher risk, and you can't control that. And lastly, family history of breast or ovarian cancer. A woman's risk for breast cancer is higher if she has a mother, sister, or daughter, and those are called first-degree relatives, or multiple family members on either your mother's side or your father's side who have had breast or ovarian cancer. Having a first-degree male relative with breast cancer also raises a woman's risk. And we'll talk a little bit later about male breast cancer, because men get breast cancer too. Other risk factors that you can't change are previous treatment with radiation and exposure to diethylstilbestrol. Radiation, of course, if you had some radiation in your chest or breast in the past, before age 30, put you at higher risk for developing breast cancer. And DES was given to some pregnant women way back in the day between 1940 and 1971 to prevent miscarriages. And then after the fact, they found out that that puts these women at a higher risk for breast cancer. So if your mother took DES while you were pregnant, while she was pregnant with you, you're at higher risk for breast cancer. Risk, and that's why I say be careful with the new drugs that come out. I'm so old school. I'm like, if it's been out for 10 years, I'm more likely to use it. If it's something new, I'm a little bit, Risk factors that you can change. Lord have mercy. Not being physically active. Yeah, I know. Being overweight or having obesity after menopause. What about obesity even before menopause? Anyway. Taking hormones, because some forms, oh goodness, Bria, you might have to come up here. I don't know what I touched. I want that to go away. Some forms of hormone replacement therapy, such as estrogen or progesterone, taken during menopause, can raise risk factors for breast cancer. Thank you. Is that all I had to do? Okay, I'm going to start over. Some forms of hormone replacement therapy, such as estrogen and progesterone, taken during menopause, can raise risk for breast cancer when taken for more than 5 years. Certain oral contraceptives, specifically birth control pills, also have found to have an increased breast cancer risk. Whew, I got that. Yeah. Okay. Reproductive history, having the first pregnancy after the age of 30, not breastfeeding, and not having a full-term pregnancy can raise breast cancer risk. Do I need to repeat that? Having your first pregnancy after the age of 30, not breastfeeding, and never having a full-term pregnancy can raise your breast cancer risk. Yeah, I learned some stuff when I was doing this. I'm like, what? So that none of that fits me, thank you, Lord. Drinking alcohol, of course, raises your risk for breast cancer. Might want to give it up, huh? I think you can read it. It's a little. This says, protect the breast, check the chest, get the test, early detection is best. Control your fate, don't be 1 in 8, because 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just from us group over here, somebody's going to get breast cancer if we already haven't had it. Lord Jesus, don't let it be. Okay. Oh, they count too. Yeah, there's 8. Y'all got, yeah, somebody over there too. I'm sorry, y'all. There you go. Breast cancer screening means checking your breast for cancer before there are signs and symptoms. All women need to be informed by their healthcare provider about the best screening options for them. And when you work with your healthcare provider, that's called informed and shared decision making. And you should be involved because it's your body. Ask the questions, and if you don't ask the questions, then ask the doctors, if I was your mother, or if I was your wife, assuming you love your wife and mother, what would you tell them? The internet is good, but it can have some very evil things. If you choose to use the internet, please, please, please get a legitimate website that you're going to. I'm not going to name any, but you know, the ones that are medically related, use those. Don't go on YouTube. Please do not, because there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube, and I'm like, don't. Get something legitimate. All breast cancer screening cannot prevent breast cancer, but it can help find it early. I've said that a lot. And it's easier to treat when you find it early. Women who are 50 to 74 years old and are at an average risk for breast cancer should get a mammogram every 2 years. And I think they decreased that. It used to be every 1 year. And women who are 40 to 49 should talk to their doctor and other healthcare providers about when to start and how often to get a mammogram. Because some women get mammograms and there's a little questionable, and they're like, we're going to watch you for a while. And you make sure you're watching yourself during that watching period of the doctors. So women should weigh the benefits and risk of screening tests when deciding to begin getting mammograms before age 50. Where can I go to get screened? You can get screened from a breast cancer at a clinic, hospitals, doctor's offices. If you want to be screened for breast cancer, call your doctor's office. They will set you up an appointment. And prayerfully, you won't have anything out of pocket to have to pay. Now, there are some benefits and risks of having this screening. The number one benefit is you find the cancer early. There are risks included, such as what I mentioned, false positive tests, when a doctor sees something they think is cancer and it's not. Because then you have more tests you got to take and more expense, and it can be invasive because you feel like, why am I going through all this? And it's time consuming, and it can cause anxiety. But I think it's still well worth it to go and find out, okay? Mammograms may also miss some cancers that are called false negative tests, which may delay finding a cancer and getting treatment. But again, it's well worth finding out. So how is breast cancer diagnosed? Well, of course, mammograms. Additional tests may have to be done depending on what's going on in the situation. Again, everybody's different. This does not mean that you have cancer or that you need surgery, but a lot of times they will refer you to oncologists and surgeons and that kind of thing. A breast ultrasound is a machine that uses sound waves to make pictures called sonograms of areas of the breast, and also diagnostic mammograms where, like I said, you've had one mammogram, it was a little abnormal, and then they have you do another one that just gives a more detailed x-ray of the breast. An MRI, it uses magnets to put a picture together of what's going on inside your body. And of course, biopsies where they take actual piece of the tissue. Staging of breast cancer is, if the breast cancer is diagnosed, there's other tests that can be done to find out if cancer cells have spread within the breast or if the cancer has spread to other parts of the body. This is called staging. And whether the cancer is only in the breast, is found in lymph nodes under your arm or has spread outside the breast determines your stage of breast cancer. And there are 5 stages of breast cancer. The type of stage in breast cancer tells doctors what type of treatment you need. And breast cancer is treated by surgery, chemotherapy, or hormonal therapy. And that's kind of funny to me because excess hormones can cause cancer, but then that's how they treat it. Anyway, well, it's just kind of funny. And not funny, haha, funny, quirky. They can also treat breast cancer with biological therapy, where they use your body's immune system to fight against cancer. And this is fairly new. I don't know that they have everything worked out with it at this time, but it is up and coming. And again, the radiation therapy. So doctors from different specialties will work together to treat your breast cancer. Surgeons who perform the operations, medical oncologists, who are doctors that treat cancer with medicine, and radiation oncologists do the radiation. There are also some other ways to treat breast cancer. And I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying do this. Complementary and alternative medicine. Complementary medicine is where they use, in addition to standard treatments, alternative medicine. And then there's also acupuncture and supplements like vitamins and other herbs. Oh golly, the fly found me. The one thing about complementary and alternative medicine is it's not been scientifically tested. I have to talk about my brother-in-law. I did it again. Oh, okay. Terrence, I can't look at Franklin and say this. Terrence had colon cancer. It spread to his liver and his lung. And I don't know time frames or nothing like that, but he got an herbal tea that cost $75 a gallon. It kept him, well, and what happened is the family, everybody would buy or pitch in to buy him this 75 because, you know, he's going through chemo, and I know chemo. I don't know if he had radiation. I do know he had chemo because I remember he talked about they had to change his cocktail and all that kind of stuff. But he would drink the tea, and he had quality of life for longer than what the physicians had expected him to have. He would talk about when he was going in for his chemotherapy, that he would get familiar with the different people that were having the treatments with him. And he said after a while there was nobody there that had been there with him because all of them had passed away. He was surviving while everybody else had gone. And the doctors were amazed because they were like, well, what's going on? And I mean, I think he openly told them, that he was drinking that herbal tea. And I even it's on my phone somewhere because I was like, what is that they're drinking? Because I had patients that I was like, well, if you want to know about this, I can tell you it worked for my brother-in-law. And so no, it didn't keep him alive forever, but it did give him a good quality of life while he was here. And that's a lot, because when you get cancer, especially breast cancer, any kind of cancer, it can become overwhelming. And his providers did tell him that it would be the chemotherapy that killed him and not the cancer, even though he had it in 3 different parts of his body. They told him it would be the chemotherapy that killed him. So trust in God. Ask the Holy Spirit to help you through. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't remember how long he lived. So there's something called triple negative breast cancer. And I think I'm going to skip and let this part tell you. So think of cancer cells as a house. To get inside, to destroy the cancer, you have to bypass 3 locks on the front door: estrogen, progesterone, and HER2. You know what? I got to go back for the HER2. I got to remember what the HER2 was. It was this. HER2 is an abbreviation for human epidermal growth factor. So if your cancer tests positive for these 3 locks, which are known as receptors, then the doctors have a few keys they can use to get inside to destroy the cells, the cancer cells. But if you have triple negative breast cancer, those locks aren't there. So the keys don't work, and chemotherapy, they are finding, is still an effective option. So that's what the triple negative means. How is triple negative breast cancer treated? Let me go back. Often patients first need to have a lumpectomy, which is taking a little part of the breast, or the entire breast, which is a mastectomy. Then they have chemotherapy to get any cancer cells that might still be hanging around. And the doctors recommend chemotherapy sometimes even before surgery to shrink the cancer. Common side effects of getting treatment for breast cancer: hair loss, nausea, tiredness, lymphedema. And lymphedema, if the lymph nodes are involved, and they remove the lymph nodes during surgery, and you get radiation to your lymph nodes, and the lymph fluid may not drain properly. And a lot of women will get really lymphedema in the arms, and they have lymphedema sleeves is what I'll call them, because it's like compression or constriction, and that's to help drain the lymphedema. Skin changes are also a common side effect of having treatment, where the radiation changes your skin color. It can start peeling, kind of like a sunburn, and there are ways to help minimize that. Do I need to get genetic counseling and testing? Because that's the newest thing they have out there. When I had my last mammogram, they said, do I want to get genetic counseling? And I'm like, no. And then after I read this, I thought, well, maybe I shoulda. Your doctor may recommend that you get with someone and talk about any history of cancer in your family to find out if you have a higher risk for breast cancer. The counselor may recommend that you get a genetic test. If you have a strong family history of breast cancer, you may have changes in your genes that increase getting breast cancer. For example, there's a certain people of the Jewish heritage that have a higher risk of being triple negative. BRCA1 and BRCA2. Breast cancer gene, that's the BR is the breast, CA, cancer, gene 1, and breast cancer 2 are genes that produce proteins that help repair the DNA. Everyone has 2 copies of each of these genes, one from each parent. So if you have BRCA1 and BRCA2 that are called tumor suppressive genes, those can be harmful, and those are mutations, and they can lead to cancer. I'm looking for the right one. Here it is. A harmful variant in BRCA1 or BRCA2 can be inherited from either parent. Each child of a parent who carries any mutation is one of these genes has a 50% chance of inheriting the mutated gene. Inherited mutations are also called germline mutations, or variants are present from birth in all cells. Even if someone has an inherited or a harmful variant in BRCA1 or BRCA2 from one parent, they would have inherited a normal copy. I don't want to call it good, but I want to call it normal of the gene from the other parent. And they found out that's because, in most cases, embryos with a harmful variant from both parents do not develop. And that's when the mother miscarriages. But the normal copy can be lost or changed in some cells in the body during that person's lifetime. And that is called a somatic alteration. Cells that don't have any functioning BRCA1 or BRCA2 proteins can grow out of control and become cancer. Joyce Turner is a genetic counselor.
And do get breast cancer.
And a breast cancer
About
survivor.
11% of new cases in the United States occur before the age of 45. I specialize in cancer genetics, and I meet with people who either have a personal history of cancer or a family history of cancer and may be at risk to develop cancer. Family history of breast cancer could include multiple generations of women and or men who have had breast cancer, and those breast cancers tend to be at an earlier age, so before the age of 50. About 5 to 10% of breast cancer cases are hereditary and are due to inherited changes in genes such as BRCA1 and BRCA2. We inherit half of our genes from our mom and half of our genes from our dad. So there is a BRCA1 or BRCA2 mutation in the family. It could come from either or both sides of the family. Not every family that is BRCA1 or BRCA2 positive will have a strong family history of breast cancer. So if a woman has a concern about a family history of breast cancer or their personal risk of breast cancer, the best thing to do would be to talk with family and learn about the family history, learn who in the family had breast cancer, at what age they had it, and gather that information and make an appointment to speak with a genetic counselor. In order to reduce the risk of either developing breast cancer or identifying it at an early stage, women have a number of different options available to them. If you are considering genetic counseling and testing and want to determine if it's right for you, you should talk to a health professional such as your obstetrician or gynecologist.
So yeah, next time I do have a mammogram, I'll probably say, yeah, let's go ahead and go forward with that genetic testing. I'm just saying. Okay, Kevin. Bill said I could point it at anything. That is not the last slide, sir. Come on, still, Bill. Bria, you might have to go back there. You know that, right? There you go. Thank you. Yes. Breast cancer in men, even though breast cancer is often found in women, men can get it. About 1 out of 100 breast cancers diagnosed in the United States is found in a man. And unfortunately, a recent study of the American Cancer Society found that breast cancer incident rates were 52% higher in black men than in white men. Why? Why y'all gotta get it? And that holds true with all types of male breast cancer, because there are different types of male breast cancer, just like there are different types for us. Lastly, the study showed that black and white men diagnosed with breast cancer receive similar treatment, but black men have worse outcomes. Even though they got the same treatment, they still did not do as well. With men, breast cancer, their symptoms are similar to us: pulling of the nipple, lump, breast. And those symptoms can happen with other conditions that are not cancer. So if you have the symptoms, or if your husband or father or brother, whoever, tell them to go to the doctor. Just find out. Risk factors for men are similar to women: getting older and obesity, genetic mutations, family history, radiation or hormone therapy. Now, this is going to be touchy, so you young ladies, don't be mad at me. But you know, these people are changing their sex orientation. And when they're taking these drugs, like estrogen, baby girl looking at me like, what's she going to say? Hormones that helps develop and maintain female sex characteristics, That leads them to increased prostate cancer and men's breast cancer. And I don't think they probably tell them that. Some of them probably wouldn't care anyway, but yeah, it can increase their risk for breast cancer. Klinefelter syndrome is a rare genetic condition in which a male has an extra X chromosome. This can lead to the body making higher levels of estrogen and lower levels of androgen, or the male sex hormone. Certain conditions that affect the testicles can increase risk for men developing breast cancer. And lastly, liver disease such as cirrhosis of the liver can lower androgen levels in men and raise estrogen levels in men, increasing the risk for breast cancer. Let's hear from Kenneth and the journey that he's had in his life. I feel so sorry.
So I was 34 years old at the time. I was hanging out with my friends, just living my best life, honestly. I thought I was on top of the world. And that's when I found this bump on my chest. When I went to the doctor, he looked at it and he said, well, I think you're okay, but like, this might sound a little weird, but we're gonna do a mammogram just to make sure it's nothing. And I didn't even think it was anything, so I was like, whatever. But then eventually, he called me and he told me that I had stage 2 breast cancer. Everything just completely stopped. I was like, okay, did they really say what they just said? So my grandmother had breast cancer and she passed away from it. And I pretty much thought it was women only. I did not know that men could get breast cancer. So, I was terrified. But when I got diagnosed, I did do the genetic test. And I found out that I had the BRCA2 mutation. I told my brother, I said, you need to get checked out because this runs in our family. And family members need to know that. So my treatment was surgery, chemo, and radiation. I lost about 30 pounds. I couldn't eat. I would be shaking. It was that bad. During my treatment, I kept it a secret. I didn't tell anyone. As a man, there was definitely a stigma, and I just didn't want those questions, so I was fighting for my life, and no one knew what was going on. And then I remember one time I asked my friend, I said, can I stay with you? I thought if I had gone to sleep, I was not gonna wake up. The following day, I was like, okay, you can do this. It's okay to ask for help. And so after that, my family, my friends, they were so supportive. They would bring me food. They would just, be there for me. I have been cancer-free for 2.5 years. I'm in a good place, and I will continue to go to the doctor. I will continue to make sure I'm okay. But it's a lot different now because I realize that there's something powerful about being vulnerable. It is powerful to ask for help. It is powerful to have people included in your life that love and want to support you. That's strength.
I love that one. Oh, that just pulls at my heartstrings. What can men do to reduce the risk of breast cancer? Well, it skipped a couple, but that's okay. It's similar to women. Reduce the risk. Some of them you can't do anything about. Some things you can. Don't smoke, don't drink. You can still have fun, though. Genetic counseling is also, men are also referred to genetic counseling as well as women. So how's breast cancer treated in men? The same as women. Hormone therapy, radiation, chemotherapy, surgery, whatever is needed, it's the same. Breast cancer screening and all treatments, one size does not fit all. And you can learn more from www.cdc.gov/cancer/breast cancer. Cancer/breast. And that is my reference. I do have another one though. Bring Your Brave. I thought this was kind of cool. It's a campaign that has been started to provide information about breast cancer to women younger than 45 years of age. They share their real stories about their breast cancer journeys and how their lives have been affected. About 9% of all breast cancer cases in the United States are found in women younger than 45 years of age. Breast cancer in young women is more likely to be hereditary than breast cancer in older women, and more likely to be found in a later stage when it is often more aggressive and more difficult to treat. Many young women do not know their risk for breast cancer or ways to manage it because why would they need to know? They're young and free. Talk to your daughters, talk to your cousins, talk to your sisters, talk to everybody. When Charity was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 27, she faced a series of difficult decisions. This is a tough one too. Let's watch her video.
My name is Charity.
And learn what
I'm 31 years
happens.
old and I live in Washington, D.C. For fun, I like to do stand-up comedy.
Welcoming to the stage.
Around September of 2012, I felt a lump in my breast. I went to a doctor and they figured that I was young and I should just probably keep an eye on it. If it got worse, come back. Gradually, over time, it was progressively getting worse. And about 3 days into being in the hospital, the cancer had eaten through my breast. I really didn't have time to sit and think about what was going on, what was going to happen. I went through total 8 rounds of chemotherapy, double mastectomy, non-skin sparing, and then I went through 33 rounds of radiation. I decided to get genetic testing and counseling, and I tested positive for the BRCA2 mutation. I'm predisposed to breast cancer, ovarian cancer, skin, pancreatic, and stomach cancer, which is scary in its own right. I decided to be proactive in my health. Having BRCA2, made the decision to have both of my ovaries removed. That was a big decision for me to make, single, never had children, and I was in the middle of chemo. After everything was over, it was a real shock to kind of like get back into, normal life and trying to decide what was best for me. Humor is my way of getting through difficult things. Always has been, probably always will be, and I felt like I needed to share that with other people. I felt like I have a story that's not really like anyone else's. I think doing the comedy allows me to tell people that breast cancer just doesn't happen to someone that's 75 years old. You need to take your health seriously. Talk to your doctor. There isn't just one face to breast cancer.
Bring Your Brave. Let the young ladies know there's something for them if they have to use it. Hopefully they don't. So my source for my information was the Division of Cancer Prevention and Control, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.